are live. Welcome to another episode of Outlier on Air. This is your host, Eric Gonzalez. This is the podcast where we interview founders, disruptors, and mavens. Today is no exception. On today's episode, we have Rachel. Rachel, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Rachel Brenke, you are a podcaster, a serial entrepreneur, an attorney, an author. I mean, where do we begin?
Well, I'm glad you stuck attorney in the middle, because when you put that first, people click away. They don't want to hear from lawyers typically.
They tune out. They're like, I'm out of here.
Yeah, I know. So I get it. No, I am multi-passionate. I feel like I'm multi-skilled, and I've kind of just combined it all into different income streams and fun things to do.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. Let's dive right into it. You're an attorney, but obviously a serial entrepreneur. What came first?
The entrepreneurship. I owned my own online apparel store while I was trying to put myself through school. And I realized how much I loved entrepreneurship. And this was in the time when there wasn't a lot of online resources. We're talking very early MySpace days. So even then, that wasn't a good platform to deliver education. And there wasn't groups and stuff like we have now. And online blogs were still relatively superficial in education information. So I feel like I started on the cusp of learning all this and realized there was a great need. Of course, now the market's relatively, saturated with information, which I think is great because it gives a variety of perspectives. People connect with different people differently. They consume information. But it was a desolate place when I was first starting out to find information. And that kind of inspired what I'm doing now, to be able to help people with the real side of entrepreneurship. Yeah,
that's what I wanted to bring up. In the beginning, there wasn't much going on. Now it feels like there's too much sometimes.
It does. Right? It does. And sometimes you feel like
not all good information either.
I know. Yeah. And
so now you're this. How far into that entrepreneurial journey did you decide, well, maybe a law degree is going to help me here?
So my trajectory went on entrepreneurship, was finishing up college, decided to get my MBA, which I'm not saying you need to run out and do in order to be an entrepreneur. This was just the trajectory that I took. I'm still, the jury's kind of out on whether or not I think the MBA has really added anything to my success as far as my non-consulting side of things. I feel like you can still be a successful entrepreneur without that, but I think it helped frame me in my mindset to help others do business. So there's a benefit, but if you're not planning on teaching, coaching, consulting other people, I'm not sure that it's necessarily needed in order to be successful. And then after that, I went to law school. I've always really enjoyed the law. And by the time I came out of law school, I had created different niche blogs, delivering information, providing resources to help others. Because again, looked for a need. When I was looking for legal information in my own businesses, there was not a lot there. And I have fulfilled that need. And in some of the spaces I'm in, I'm the only person that is specializing in that industry. And that's super fun. That's just to still get to say that I'm the only, because I know that there's going to be other people coming out of the woodwork, but I'm ready for some competition. So yeah,
and you've been doing it for a while, and obviously with some success. So let's talk about the details. Where do you spend most of your time in the week? I mean, what are you working on the most?
Yeah, so the way that I'm structured is Rachel Brenke is kind of the mothership, the website. That's where I host my podcast. And then from there, I have the different niche sites. And that my majority of my attention really does fall into those three. I have FitLegally, Rachel Brenke, and then the Law Talk. I also have Blog Legally, but I'm starting to move a lot of that information into the podcast more. So majority of my efforts are split. It's not like an even divide. I also own my own law firm with a business partner, another attorney. And this is a hard answer because it really just depends. But for me to be able to even get any of this done, I schedule everything. Like Tuesdays, Thursdays are like law firm specific administrative days. And my hours are very fine tuned, as you probably saw with us, even trying to schedule to get this coordinated. But it's the only way to be able to do it all. And I'm not saying I do everything, but like do all that I'm doing and still have life. Like that for me is the most important. And my team recognizes that I have boundaries, and they're pretty hard boundaries to not let anything creep into my personal life. Like taken away from personal life. I mean,
well, let's talk about that for a sec, right? We get we're 400 plus episodes, right? We've interviewed a ton of entrepreneurs from all over the world, and sometimes I get there's no such thing as work-life balance, all that stuff. I am my business 24/7. I get a call at night, I'm answering it. I get an email in the middle of the night, I'm answering it. Where others are like, no, it's definitely, you need to leave the office in the office and not let it creep into your personal life. Both successful, right? Both have the pluses and minuses. For you though, you're saying there's definitely a line.
Now, it didn't always used to be that way.
Okay.
And it was because I feel like in the beginning, you're overwhelmed trying to learn how to do all these hats, as well as you're paralyzed almost with fear that you're not going to have income coming in, especially if your family or yourself is relying on that to survive. It's really easy to succumb and mistake busyness for business and vice versa.
It happens all the time, sure.
It's not perfect. Like, it's easy for me to sit on podcasts and say, oh, I have everything scheduled. But I mean, even on Mother's Day yesterday, there was an issue and I hopped on email for a minute to help fix it. And so it does bleed over. But I think the important thing to understand is I think that work-life balance stuff is BS. Like, I don't think you fully ever have it balanced. And if someone tells you they do, they're lying.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'm completely hard scheduled, but it still creeps. It's just, and what's most important is the priority and keeping your focus on what is a priority in it and actively working to that. You may not always succeed at it, but that's okay. And that's where giving yourself grace comes in. And that's what is the great thing about entrepreneurship and being the one in control. You can forgive yourself and you can say yes, you can say no. It's completely up to you.
Yeah, for a long time, I was beating myself up. I have 3 young kids at home. I'm thinking I need to focus at home when I'm at home. So I work hard. And then every once in a while, the wife's like, hey, let's check in a little bit. Like, let's focus on the home. And then I do. And then I focus on the home. And sometimes work stuff is starting to knock on my door. So it's never right in the middle. I think I'm always going like this. And I think most people, if they're honest with themselves, are back and forth as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's why when I see these people on Instagram and podcasts that are like, I have the secret to work-life balance. I'm like, you have the secret to being a liar. And that sounds horrible, I know, but like, I've been through this. I've been through multiple types of businesses. I've talked with other entrepreneurs and no one ever has it perfect. I mean, even Sheryl Sandberg came out and said that out of the 4 things, was it like family, health, relationships, and career, you can only pick 3. And when she first came out with that, I was like, oh, that's BS. That's not true. Then I started looking at it and seeing what my priority of those 4 were and which 1 or 2 was falling off my plate. That's
a good way to keep track. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, we're going to get into some of the details of the work that you do, but I'm interested in this kind of piece because I think I'm dealing with it a little bit more as well. 5 young children at home, right? A husband, Army vet. Mm-hmm. Or is it Army? Yes.
Yeah. Army.
And so, right, I just rattled off all the things that you're doing. That's a ton. Like I can't figure out. I feel like a slacker, right, compared to all the stuff that they go.
You're not looking at year 1. You're looking at year 12.
That
when I started, I had 1 kid. You know, I didn't have these degrees. I didn't have these multiple businesses. So what is that saying that people always are pinning and resharing? Don't compare your beginning to someone else's. Yeah. You know, mine is my chapter 12, and it's true because it may look like I have a lot going on. And this refers back to what we were talking about with scheduling. I'm not giving 100% to all the brands every week. It does ebb and flow based on the time of year, especially being in different industries. Like, for example, one is very photography industry focused. Well, the photography industry has very busy times and slower times. And so my work varies within that as well. And the same thing goes for if you're an entrepreneur that's listening and you serve other entrepreneurs, you probably see a big rush of people excited at the beginning of the year. They want to get their stuff together. They've got goals and resolutions. The beginning of your year is probably a lot busier as an educator and pouring into them as opposed to later on. So it ebbs and flows. That's the word I'm looking for. Ebbs and flows, and I just kind of rock with it.
Looks like you froze there for a sec, but we're back. Now, let's I want to focus on I think we can wrap our head around what you do legally, right? Obviously, you go to the office, you help that stuff. But outside of that, with the Law Talk and FitLegally, so you're basically helping entrepreneurs with law-related issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say there's this gap between being able to hire a lawyer and the knowledge to be able to do that or make the decision to do that. And I was finding a lot of misinformation out on the internet. Lawyers, it's a very old industry. It's a very old profession. Lawyers, I say this all the time. Most lawyers have like the worst website. Like they don't rely on a lot of like, couple years ago, let me back up. A couple years ago, you could say majority of lawyers out there, you would hardly find a blog post. You wouldn't find a YouTube channel. They're catching on because there's younger ones of us coming up that are doing it. But when I started all this, there was literally superficial information, misinformation on the web. And my goal with the blogs is kind of to bridge the gap and empower the entrepreneurs to be able to take control over also understanding the legal stuff in your business, because as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, business owner, whatever you want to call yourself, the one that's in control and in charge, you have to take control. I work with entrepreneurs all the time, and I have to remind myself all the time that every single task in my business needs to come through my hands. I used to wait tables when I was trying to grow the businesses. I was in school, and I always loved working for the companies that had the managers who were required to do every job in the restaurant before they were a manager.
Sure.
And it's so that your hands touch everything, because it gives you an appreciation. It gives you the knowledge. It gives you the value in the perceptions of what's
which makes sense. Sure.
Exactly. And the law is no different. I'm not saying run out to DIY it, but it's important because you also need to be able to make decisions. You need to be able to know when to pivot, turn, grow, or react, or act offensively in your business, but you can't do that if you're blindly handing it off to a lawyer, because that's one camp of people, or the other camp of people that put their head in the sand and they don't do anything about learning this information until they're like, oh snap, and then they're in my inbox like, what do I do? And they're out way more amount of money than if they had been on the offensive, work to prevent issues. So I say all that to say that's really what my niche blogs are, to help bridge the gap and give you guys the tools and information to feel empowered, feel responsible, and get your hands on this information to make educated decisions. Because at the end of the day, you're the one that is going to make it or break it. That lawyer goes home at 5 o'clock.
Sure. So where's the line, right? Again, with all the events that we've had, with all the podcast guests that we've had on, we hear a lot of the do what you're good at and outsource everything else, right? So whether it's their code tech or whatever sales, they do that well, and then they outsource the accounting, they outsource the law stuff. So where's the line though, right? Because you're saying know at least something, or at least try to figure it out.
Educate yourself, but don't do. It's being enough to be able to make the decision when the lawyer says, do you want me to file X? You will have the knowledge to be able to be, yes, I see the value. I see why I need that. Not just, oh, you said I need that. Okay. You need to know the reasonings for it. One of the big examples for that that I always see is most entrepreneurs, they'll start out and they go to form their business, if they even take the steps. And that's choosing like LLC or a corporation if you're in the United States. But as you grow, your needs grow. And if you just go to a lawyer who is an order taker, nothing different than like you go to a restaurant and they're just like, well, what do you want? And you're kind of like, oh, I'll just pick something. If you don't have the knowledge, you don't know when you need to make a change. And to be honest, a lot of lawyers out there are not of this more business consulting and management mindset. So they're only taking in your what you want and not really helping develop and looking at your long-term plan. So you do have to bridge that gap for them. We as entrepreneurs have to pick up that burden to learn the knowledge to be able to hand it off. I'm with you. I'm not saying like get so burdened down in these tasks that you have to learn how to do them perfectly. That's not at all. But definitely touch everything in your business. Like I know enough of taxes to be dangerous. I hand them off,
Mm-hmm. So now let's talk about the things that you see on a regular basis. What are some of the common mistakes that entrepreneurs are making? And is there a difference between the mistakes that a solopreneur is making as opposed to a small startup team?
So I find that many startups feel like because they have so many players going on that they typically will take the step to at least talk to an attorney at least once. Solopreneurs, so many don't do it until they need help, until they're in a pickle. One of the classic examples I have, and this could be of any client that I have come in the door that did not get help from the very beginning. And let's say you offer like a personal services or you're selling something online, you need to have some sort of contract terms in place. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, I don't need that. Not a big deal. I'm just selling a bandana. What does it matter? Well, it matters when you have a problem with that transaction. For example, I had a client recently who had come to us and was like, hey, will you review my personal services contract? How much will it cost? And I said, oh, about $600. That'll be a couple hours because we go through it, review it, we talk with you so you understand it. And they were like, no, we're not going to spend that. Fast forward 6 months, there was an issue because you never have an issue till you have an issue. Uh-huh. And he got sued by one of his customers, and his bill is up to $7,500 now of having to fight that. And
for that 600 looked pretty nice, right?
Yeah. He comes to me later and goes, I should have just paid it. I'm like, yeah, but we're here now and we fixed it moving forward. And it's because the contract could have outlined very specifically that if there was a dispute, he would get attorney's fees. It could have protected him in a couple other different issues that happened in the case. And I won't get too dig into those details, but the essence of this is what I see time and time again. This can boil down into the online e-commerce. Someone has a problem and all of a sudden they're suing you, and you have to defend yourself. You don't have a choice when you're on the defendant side of it. You don't get to walk away. So that's a big one. Another one is when you don't choose like the proper business formation type, sure. Whether you're a limited liability company or a corporation. Many solopreneurs don't understand this, or they don't even think about it. And then in that situation, like when they get sued, their personal stuff is on the line. And so many entrepreneurs will try to say to me, well, I don't have a lot of personal assets. And I say, well, you make money to live, don't you? Mm-hmm. That's a personal asset. You get a judgment against you. It can be attached to you, to your house, to your wages, and so those are the two biggest things. It's not having like proper contract terms in place or having the proper liability protection through business formation. That's pretty general what I see across the board that so many entrepreneurs don't do, and it's relatively low cost and just easy to get taken care of.
And so are most of your clients the solopreneur small teams, or are you working with larger corporations as well? You don't want to.
Yeah, we focus on solopreneurs and smaller teams. We kind of like to think of ourselves as the David against the big Goliath. We like to
love that.
Small people.
I love that.
And and the thing that kind of is discouraging sometimes is that I'll look over at lawyer friends who are representing corporations and they're making so much more money. But like my partner and I will just sit back and think all the time, we're doing more than making money. We're on the ground level with these people who are pounding the pavement, pounding the interwebs. My husband hates them. They're pounding the internet, and they're providing for themselves and their family, and they're filling their own pockets and filling their own dreams, and not sitting in a cubicle somewhere filling somebody else's. And when I have a client crying to me while she's paying me thousands of dollars and thanking me for saving her small business, that's way better than representing a large corporation.
Now, what I like about you is that, and you mentioned this earlier, attorneys, lawyers, right? Old school mentality sometimes, a lot of them anyway.
Yeah.
Right. And with what you do at the attorney level, it's not scalable, right? You can only put so many hours into this.
Yeah.
But you also have that entrepreneurial spirit, and you're doing stuff outside of that. Still related to it, but outside of it. Are you more of the traditional type of business person, more of the new age entrepreneurial type of? Where do you fall there? I can't tell.
Well, no, on the law firm side, it is harder to scale. Because it's I can only multiply my hours by hiring other people to be able to work at the same time. And so we're scaling our firm. We were two independent firms and we merged. So that was one of our first big steps to scale. And we've been hiring more people so that, because obviously I only have X amount of hours in the day. It's it can be frustrating sometimes knowing, well, I only get 6 or 8 hours out of work a day and that's all I can make. Whereas I look over at my other businesses that are more passive income, it can be a little frustrating, but I can't really have one without the other. And I don't want one without the other. I think they fill two different purposes. The online blogs really provide this information. I get to do more of a business consulting over there. Whereas I'm on the law firm side, I'm doing more of the old school filing of paperwork. And I like it. I get to still consult with my clients and help them manage their business. But I don't know, it kind of fills both sides for me.
Is there a time when you won't work? I mean, what has to happen in order for you to turn away business?
I don't think I'm the type of person that can ever sit still. So whether it is working or if it's like I just created a nonprofit. So if it's doing, which I never thought that would ever happen, whether it's filling my days with that, it would have to be getting to the point that I can financially sustain the business, sustain my quality of life and the goals that I have. Only then do I think that I can't say I would walk away. And I hate the term serial entrepreneur in the mindset because I feel like I don't just grow these and sell them, sell them. I grow them and keep them. So there's not like this turnover. I don't know. I have no answer for you. I've thought about it. I don't really have an exit plan. We'll just kind of see where it goes because I'm really enjoying what I'm doing.
And with the team that you have, with everything you have going on, I mean, this is including all the the blogging to the attorney stuff. What do you struggle with the most? Right? I mean, we all management. That was quick.
Hands down. That's my big weakness. And it's hard because you have to, like you're talking about, I can only work a certain amount of hours. So in order to scale, you also want to outsource the things that you're not good at. Well, what people don't tell you when they're screaming outsource is that you also have to learn to manage at the same time. And that has been the hardest thing for me because I am more of a control type A. I want to do it, so I make sure that it gets done. And it's not that I'm a perfectionist. It's just about communication. I don't know. I struggle with it. My team says I've gotten better at it. I'm really trying.
Yeah, that's a difficult one, right? Because I mean, most of us have this talent or this passion or this whatever we're doing, and we've created businesses around it, and so we like to focus on that, and we want to push hard at that. But then we start to actually have success, and we start to bring people on board, and we start to outsource a few of these things. That's difficult. That's been difficult for me. I hear that a lot, right? As much as I like people, the management of a team sometimes gets in the way for us. Just because, for me personally, just because I'm like, let's go. I assume people can read my mind, and that's my problem.
Yes, and I work faster, I think, than the average person. So my team will be like, whoa.
Slow it down.
Open door policy though, and so my right hand, she's been with me since almost the beginning. She's one of those that can kind of rein me in, and she's the one that'll say, because I'll get excited about a new project, even though we're like packed to the gills on time, and she'll be like, "Let's put this in the pending folder for right now, Rachel. Like you need someone that trusts you and knows your business." And so she helps to oversee all of the different brands now. And she came out of my audience. That's how I found her. She was a loyal follower, and then we became friends. And then she has grown into this position. So maybe that's kind of my tip if you guys are struggling with management, is to have someone that you fully can trust and that recognizes and understands like how you work. Because she knows that if I get frustrated about something, I'm not going to have a chip on my shoulder like in 2 hours with her. Like, we'll just be fine. We have our moment. She jokes how I fire her every day and she quits every day. I'll show up the next day. So
it's important though. I've been in positions where I was surrounded by yes men, right? Yeah. Not that they're completely bad and all that stuff, but listen, I want people pushing back.
Yeah.
I want people telling me, hey, listen, maybe that's not the right direction, or hey, you were a jerk at that meet, whatever. I want people to tell me it's not working somehow, and then let's come up with a solution, right? If everybody's saying yes because I'm the boss, we're not going to get anywhere, right? As cool and as smart as I think I am, it's not always the case.
No.
Finding those people is very important.
Yeah, and there's different levels to that, because like my right hand, she can be a bit more bolder to me than the other team members that we have. And I will, and I kind of have different levels of what I'm going to share with them. And so for me, it's been about creating a culture of this is a team-based thing, but they still know at the end of the day that I have the final say on everything. But it's not like this, what I say goes. Yeah. I really try to get them, because I want them to have ownership. That's the biggest thing. I don't want them to be employees, and I hate to call them that. We really are a team, and I want them to take ownership and pride in what they do.
Let's talk about the podcast. Yeah. Why did you start it? With everything you got going on, why the podcast?
Because I was finding that I had these little tidbits of information that didn't really fit into some of the niches. Because with the legal-based niches, I can put out business and marketing information, but it was getting lost in the shuffle because people were coming for legal information. I love marketing. I absolutely love marketing and psychology. And so that was just a good little outlet for me to be able to talk about that, talk about the work-life balance. Basically the top questions that my audience would ask, but stuff that didn't really seem to fit into one of the blogs. When someone would land there, they were looking for law, but then they're getting a thing about, well, the top 5 tools that help me survive being a mom of 5 in a business. It was kind of a disconnect.
And you seem to be a pro at it, natural.
The podcast?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a pro at talking. Ask my husband.
That's why they pay you the big bucks.
Right.
So what's the goal with there? I mean, you I think you said you had about 60 episodes or so.
Yeah, we're only about 60 episodes in.
I mean, that's a big deal. Not just only 60 episodes. Most people fade
for 400 episodes over here.
But yeah, most people fade at 6 to 8 episodes, right? I'm going to start a podcast, and then they fade away. 60 is a big deal.
I kind of feel like the podcast and my books and all of those are more of a means to an end of long-term of what I want to do for me. Because I feel like the brands could always be sold off. They could become more team-based, but it's more of assets for Rachel Brenke.
Sure. Which makes sense. And I keep telling people that even if nobody listened to my podcast, right? Even if we didn't have any downloads or anything like that, I would still be doing the show just because of all the connections that we make, all the people that we get to talk to. Because we host a lot of events, a lot of our speakers come from my list of guests, and it's been amazing. And so we don't make money on the podcast, right? We don't want ads and things like that, sponsors, but we make money because of the podcast. And it, those that are thinking about starting a show, do it. Mm-hmm. The barrier of entry is so small, right? It's not very difficult to do it.
No, that is low barrier to entry on it. I think the biggest thing is finding, much like anything else in business, finding where there is a hole in the industry. And mine really was born out of, I was getting frustrated because I was, as an entrepreneur myself, wanting to continue doing my education, but then I didn't have time to sit down and listen to hour and a half long podcasts. I didn't have time, and they were just filling up my phone. And then I was just having to remove them. And then I felt horrible. And it was this whole guilt thing, blah, blah, blah. So I thought, what if I could do quick 10 to 15 minute episodes? And it also allowed me, as the person that's giving it, know that I don't have to carve out an hour. It's 30 minutes, my setup, my recording, my editing, and then it's done. It's not this whole big production. But the goal was really just to get information in people's hands. And because legal and that kind of stuff, no one really wants to listen to anything legal for longer than 15 minutes of that.
Yeah, when we think of attorneys, we think of old, boring dudes, right?
Yeah, well, that is kind of true. Welcome to the end of my profession.
but you're making these sometimes very complicated issues, topics, easy to understand, easy to digest, easy to be like, listen, I listened for 15, 20 minutes. Now I can at least have an idea of what this topic means and how it's going to help me. And so you're making obviously a difference. I'm
trying, and I'm excited for the legal industry because there are other people doing what I'm doing that are coming up in different industries, and I love it. Like, I'm super excited because it makes me have to push the envelope to see how much better that I can be. But it's getting this information that is so needed, because I have seen businesses go under for stupid mistakes simply because they didn't know something, and for me that breaks my heart, knowing that they had to close their business because they crumpled under the weight of something that could have easily been fixed. So I'm excited. I mean, I feel like the legal industry will have more like highlighted hair and nose rings.
Yeah, you think so? Be a little bit more hip.
Yeah.
Now, back on the show, what are we going to be talking about?
Can you repeat that? Sorry, it broke up.
In 3 years, when we have you back on this show, what are we going to be talking about?
Oh my gosh, I don't know.
I mean, it can go any direction, right?
Yeah, well, hopefully it'll be about the fist bump that I give Oprah when she has me on her show. No, I'm kidding.
I like it.
We'll see.
I like it.
Thinking big, I'm happy with where I'm at. I would be happy to continue to grow. I mean, I have big goals and things that I want to do. I don't know what that looks like yet exactly. And it's kind of scary to say it out loud.
Which is funny because I thought you would have, because of your background and who you are, I thought you would have been like, oh, in 3 years, I'm going to be doing this. In 5, I'm going to be doing this. In 10 years, I'm going to, very controlled. But I kind of like the fact that you don't know.
So, well, the timing of this podcast is interesting because had we had this 3 weeks ago, I would have said, oh, I would love to be in politics. I would love to be doing this. Mm-hmm. But I've had a earth-shattering life situation that has made me not want to go in that direction. And I talked about it earlier that I've recently set up a nonprofit, and so I'm going to be working on lobbying of legislation. So maybe that's what my future now will hold. I don't know if it'll be in place of what I'm doing. I think it'll be an addition once I figure out how to get more hours in the day.
Do you mind let's talk about it for a sec, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Why that route?
So we had I can't speak too much because we still have pending litigation and everything going on, but my best friend and dog was killed. And in that, witnessing this event and going through the trauma of it, my family, and learning what was going to happen or not happen in courts, because animal cruelty law and all of that was not my purview. I was then stuck in business stuff. I didn't know how not protected pets are, and at least in the state of Virginia. And so when this happened, my eyes were open to how pets are treated less than your replaceable property of your house or your car. And so it's just lit my heart on fire now for lobbying of changing of legislation for that. I've seen other things just dealing with the criminal justice system and procedures and the way that people are treated. And I kind of it's bigger than a dog now. I feel like I'm on a larger mission. Really? So we'll see if that fits within what I'm doing or if it's going to be in addition to it. But I'm excited for that.
We obviously do research on all of the people that come onto our show, right? We want to try to ask intelligent questions, those type of things. Doing research on you, obviously you're passionate about helping people, not just on the business side, but a few of the other things that you're involved with. And that's a big deal, right? We need more people that kind of want to help people. And so congratulations to you and all the work that you've done. Everything you've gone through obviously has shaped who you are and the ability to kind of give back. And so now for those that are listening, whether here live or later, what kind of advice do you have for these entrepreneurs, for these humans, for whatever that's going to help them get to that next level in whatever they're doing, right? We're all in the trenches a little bit. Yeah. What can we learn from you from this episode and from your experiences?
So the trenches feeling, I don't think ever goes away. I just think your position in the trench and your changes. Sometimes you're really down in it. Sometimes you're up top watching others in it. But you kind of hit it on the head, and I'm really actually appreciative and flattered the way that you said about helping others. I see so much competition, and we're so focused on trying to get our own piece of entrepreneurship that we forget to stop and look outside of ourselves. And we touched on it with work-life balance, but it's easy as entrepreneurs to become so laser focused on trying to succeed that we end up excluding our family, our interpersonal relationships. And in the times that I've been reflecting, since I've been reflecting a lot since this has happened, that I have stopped and opened up. It's going to sound, I can't even believe this is me now, because like a month ago, I wouldn't have been like this. But the times that I've stopped and opened up my heart and my mind to helping others and creating relationships is when I saw my business and my successes go up.
Really?
I'm not saying do that to get success. People are drawn to that. Humans want and crave comfort in relationships. Mm-hmm. So look at it. If you just boil it down even to an educational standpoint, if you look through the best marketing techniques, why social media works, what is it all on the backs of? It's on the backs of wanting attention and giving attention. And obviously social media has swung the pendulum probably a bit in the direction of superficial, but the things that go viral are what? They're cute puppy videos, the dogs, saving a drowning child. It's the heart feel good stuff. So focusing on the heart matters in your audience, in your customers, in yourself, and in your interpersonal relationships. You'll see an upswing. Now, that doesn't mean you can just sit back, post inspirational memes and go, oh, I love everybody, and hope that people come. You still have to have the grit and the plan and be methodical, but don't exclude, and I'm mostly speaking to myself when I say this, because I had a tendency to be focused and kind of not cultivate relationships. We're talking about those 4 things earlier. And the one of the 4 that had fallen off for me was developing a relationship outside of my family. That I had a lockdown, but it was more of like friendships. But in the wake of a tragedy, these people that I haven't talked to in 12 years have surrounded me and lifted me up. And so I say all that to say, if you're listening, just when you're making your plan, when you're making your goals, make sure you put time for heart and self-care and prioritize that stuff. Because at the end of the day and at the end of life, none of this entrepreneurship crap matters if you don't have anybody to share it with.
That's huge.
That's deep. I just got super
that is deep, right? As you're building your empire, look around and take care of yourself and the people around you. Sometimes we forget that. So thank you for that. Now, for those that are interested in getting to know you a little bit better and the things that you're doing with legal and even with this new project that you have going on, where can we find you online?
You guys can find me at rachelbrenke.com. That's kind of the mothership. It'll sprout you out to the different blogs that I have. It's got the podcast, and there's a contact form. So you guys have any questions, if you just need help to find a resource in your state for legal or otherwise, myself or the team are more than happy to help.
Fantastic. So Outliers, you can go to outliermagazine.co. That's outliermagazine.co. First of all, subscribe to the podcast, rate, review it, share it with your friends. We have interesting entrepreneurs that we interview on a regular basis. Rachel, obviously being one of them, she knows what she's doing. She knows what she's talking about. Feel free to connect with her. She's doing some amazing things, and no doubt that we're going to continue to follow you, Rachel. Good luck with everything you got going on, and we'll have you back on the show in 3 years.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Great. Outliers, we'll talk to you tomorrow.